Hi, everybody, and welcome to DAOFitLive number 2. I'm Lily Kazemi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of DAOFitLife.com, which is a fitness blog for busy working professionals. And I'm really happy to introduce to you today my co-editor and certified trainer who spent the better part of her decade-long career in Equinox training neurotic clients like us. This is Netta Khalili. So really glad to have you here because we're really excited about the topic we're talking about today. It is Super Bowl Sunday fitness. So Super Bowl number 56, and yes, I did look that up to make sure I got it right, is this Sunday. But it's also kind of a double whammy because it's also this weekend, that's the 13th, and then the 14th is Valentine's Day.
Yes.
So it's like, it's crazy, right?
And then followed by President's Day, and it's freezing, and weekend getaways.
Yeah. There's so many people on vacations right now. I know. I'm at work, I know, yeah.
So it's just...
Yeah. And fast forward to March, we've got like St. Patrick's Day. And before you know it, it'll be spring and summer and happy hours and 4th of July. It's just going to be like a kind of a domino effect of these, what we call eating holidays. And like, we thought we were done, right? Because it was like Thanksgiving and the holidays. And then, as we talked about on our last live event, January is definitely a resolution type of month. It's like, people are going back to the gym. I can see that, there's definitely more foot traffic where I am. But as a trainer, there's also dry January of like no alcohol. This is not an alcoholic beverage, by the way, but we're going to get into what it is when we go to our tips about food and drink. But as a trainer, you kind of see this. You see this massive spike.
Yes.
And then you kind of see this like drop off
super dip
in February, like around. So can you like explain why that happens?
Well, yes, I can. And it folds perfectly into Super Bowl Sunday. People get really excited, and especially after essentially going ham from New Year's, and they sort of set these really lofty goals, not really getting into building better habits either.
Right.
So they're sort of not getting into that really core why, as you explained in your last video. They're just sort of getting on that surface level, get in shape, like the way that they might prepare for a big eating event, they just go so hard, and then they either hurt themselves or they find that it becomes completely unsustainable.
Because it's too rigorous, right? Because if you're doing a dry January type of thing, like no alcohol for this many days, or no sugar. Like if you've deprived yourself of sugar until now, like my heart goes out to you. So what we're going to cover here is we're going to cover 5 tips, and we're going to end it at 5 till 10:30 to make sure you're out of here in 20 minutes. So that gives us plenty of time to go through these. So our tips are going to be how to be prepared, how to not have this feast or famine approach, saving your grueling workout for the day after the Super Bowl, and having the right food and drink. And we have a lot of ideas that we're going to share about that. And then finally, it's like, how do you kind of recover the next day? Because Monday is still going to be a recovery day, like no matter how pristine, you are over the weekend. All right. So let's get into it. So, that's kind of like the Boy Scout motto, right? Like, be prepared. So you've probably already made your plans for this weekend. And actually, before we get into anything that we're about to say, this advice is not particular to only those of you who are football fans, American football fans, I should say, because we know there's soccer and the World Cup coming up in 2022. But so this advice applies there. It applies if you're watching the Olympics. It applies if you're just binge watching Netflix. This is kind of like the long term in front of the TV advice,
Yes.
right? And even if you're not like partaking in Valentine's Day, there's other, special occasions, special holidays. So this is definitely evergreen and not limited to the Super Bowl. But just, for fun, we're doing this in context of the Super Bowl. So the first tip is being prepared. So back to the plans. All right. So your plan may be to just enjoy it at home with the family. You might be having a few friends over, or, you might be invited to go enjoy it with some friends. And like, when I'm in that situation, as a trainer, I have to ask you, because like that makes me nervous, because like I don't have control over the spread or like, what's going to be served. So like, how can people who are in that situation be prepared?
Well, the best thing that you can do is sort of take charge, and you're not going to attend empty-handed.
Well, because we're Persian and we never do that.
No,
that's like a custom.
That's a big
custom, but we recommend that for all cultures.
Yes, exactly. That is a big no-no for us. But you can use that to your advantage in that, so, you can bring those snacks, food, and drink. Nobody's going to turn their head away at that. And I suggest that you do that. And that's what I've done in the past before. And people are around you as well. And I'm like, oh, what's that about?
And the ideas we're going to get into are good ones. You're not going to be the person bringing like, a bag of kale and like, you're not going to be like the unpopular one. Okay. So preparation is good. And like, if you're hosting yourself, we'd recommend to like, do your shopping well before Sunday. Like, do not try to go Saturday afternoon. You're just setting yourself up for stress. And besides, you probably won't be able to find anything of what you need. So like, make those preparations. And part of being prepared is like your self-care, because it is Wednesday, but what you do during the week in terms of eating a healthy diet and exercising, that's going to be the North Star for how your weekend is going to go.
Yes.
So eating regular meals with healthy fats, proteins, carbohydrates, and fiber, and getting, regular exercise, not kind of like deciding to do this like monster workout the morning of, and then, but not like, not doing that consistently during the weeks.
Exactly. And that sort of setting the tone of balance is key. There's no sort of Bridget Jones going crazy on the stationary bike image here.
That was a great scene from the movie.
And it sticks in my mind when that kind of preparing for an event.
Like for 3 days, she wanted to be healthy.
Yeah.
She was back to smoking.
Losing her mind. I don't ever suggest that. And I don't ever suggest that on the dietary spectrum or on the physical spectrum. You want to have that nice balance of real food.
Yes, and 80-20 balance we talk about in one of our blog posts, like the 80-20 approach. So no matter what day it is, like 80% of what you're going to eat is whole food, plant-based, but you have to have that 20% buffer for what I label as joy eats, eating purely for pleasure. So Super Bowl Sunday is definitely one of those days. So we'll get to that when we get to all the food ideas. But the second tip that we have kind of gets you into closer in the weekend, which is the no feast or famine approach. So for this tip, I've experienced this a lot myself, and I definitely heard of it. And this is, for example, applicable if you're, for example, going to a wedding or some type of an event. There is a temptation to sort of, white knuckle and really just like hardly eat anything, or maybe even nothing at all, because you're thinking, oh, I need to conserve like my calories.
Yes.
And then I have license to eat what I want. So tell me what's wrong with that.
That's dangerous, because what happens is that once you've put your body into a state of starvation, and not to mention you're hangry,
yes,
and that's never fun.
Yes.
But the thing is that why that's so dangerous is because your body doesn't recognize from when you were like a Neanderthal
Mhm.
till now of I need food in front of me.
Mhm.
So when that food is in front of you, you're going to literally just not stop eating.
Yes.
It's going to be on and on and on. And studies have found that when those type of situations happen, that caloric expenditure is much, much higher.
It's much higher than if you had eaten throughout the day.
Yes.
And also people tend to underestimate the calories. So we're going to get into that when we get into like kind of the foods you can eat compared to like the portion sizes of those foods. But
especially, I just wanted to mention, especially underestimate in terms of intensity. So those intense workouts.
Of the workouts, yes.
People tend to consume way more. So
no, I mean, that gets into the next tip, which is tip number 3. So I'll tell you that I've been going to the gym on Super Bowl Sunday morning probably for, I don't want to date myself here, but at least for 20 years, right? And I see the same thing every time. And I can remember from long, long ago, this very distinct memory sticks out in my mind is I was in a gym and it was busy. And I don't know if you remember back in the day where the gym was busy and there'd be a little sign that says, oh, all cardio machines have a 30-minute limit.
Yes, I remember.
So I went up to this girl and it looked like she was toward the end of this workout on the machine. And I asked her, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, are you almost finished? I wanted to go on the machine. She's like, I am, but these 2 friends of mine who are like over there are next in line because we're all gonna like do this huge workout today because we all want to like really eat later. That just stuck out in my mind. But just like you were saying, like people way underestimate how many calories they burn. Like, first of all, like the machine's estimation is almost always like way off.
Yes.
And even your Fitbit, like we published an article on the blog that basically has a research from Stanford University that says like Fitbits are like 93% inaccurate in terms of calorie burn.
In terms of calorie, they're almost like 100% accurate in terms of heart rate and pulse for anybody with heart conditions to know that. But yes, with the caloric expenditure, completely off, and especially those machines, completely off because momentum is moving that like pacer forward.
Yes. So when it says to enter your weight, I basically just bypass. I'm like, okay, enter. There's no point because the estimate will not be accurate. And so any kind of temptation to take that to heart is not there. And so back to the type of workout. I mean, so there is this like, tendency of people to kind of go for like one of those like very long cardio calorie burning workouts. I mean, I know like, for example, on Thanksgiving, Soul Cycle offers this turkey burn workout where it's like a 90-minute spin class. Similarly, you may be thinking, okay, Sunday morning, and I think it will be a little bit warmer this weekend here on the East Coast. Sunday morning is a great day to go for like this like 8-mile run. And I mean, if that's what you typically do, that's great. But heed the warning that, kind of a very long, I mean, you're a runner. She's actually a former track star. Okay. I used to see her on the treadmill when I was in the gym, and then I would do the workout class that I was there for. And then I would go take a shower and she'd still be running. So, for as a runner from experience that it makes you hungry.
Yes.
Right?
And you have to eat. And if that's part of your particular training, if you are training a certain way, I suggest you train a certain way. Or if you have a regular routine that you take, ropes and rowers every Sunday morning, I suggest you stick with your regular routine, like as regularly
That's
scheduled.
An Equinox class you just plugged, and I've taken it. It's a very good class, but very high intensity.
High intensity. Yeah. If that's your thing, go for it. Or I suggest actually take it down a notch and try more mindful movement from yoga with a more meditative flow, Tai Chi, or even like a bar class where there's a concentrated effort on smaller movements.
Yes, to be more mindful, because the importance of the mind, body, and mindfulness connection, it's going to be important when you're in a situation where you could be eating on autopilot. So if you do want to do a grueling workout though, if you want to take it up a notch with your workouts, my suggestion and my strategy is to schedule, pay for, or like if you have a trainer, schedule a session early the next morning.
Yes.
Because that'll be hanging over your head the night before that like, oh, I've got this early thing the next morning. It's also like if you happen to be a guest of someone, like I know that the game ends at a certain point, but this could be like, your get out of jail free or like your ticket to be like, oh, game's over, gotta leave because I've got this early morning workout.
Yes. And especially if people are pressuring you to eat or drink a certain way.
And they're called food pushers, by the way. There's a technical term for these people.
Oh, wow. It's especially in that case, that's the best thing to sort of say, oh, well, I have this particular class I gotta go to. People really back off.
Yeah. Yeah, or having like a couple bites of whatever, if you really want that particular type of food, having like a couple of bites of it or just like a small sampling of it. But it's like, you have a perfectly good reason not to eat like a dozen chicken wings if you have like an early morning workout. Fun fact, Americans consume an average of 1.38 billion chicken wings on Super Bowl Sunday. Like that's what the research uncovered.
Oh my gosh.
So I think we can move on to the next one. The next section is actually going to be the most fun part of this. So if you are watching this as a recording, like this is the part that you'd want to fast forward to later. Like we'd really recommend it. Okay. So you can have fun with food and drink.
Yes.
And there are ways to have like like eating holidays like Super Bowl Sunday or Christmas or, New Year's, 4th of July, like all kinds of holidays. Those entail eating usually what is termed low volume, high calorie and fat foods. So it's like you have this itty bitty amount of food and then you have all these calories. Now I have a few demos in this area. If you don't mind holding
I don't mind.
Topo Chico, which we're going to get to that. Okay. Chips. That is an American pastime, right?
Yes.
Okay. We love, everybody wants to eat chips when they're watching the game and we won't deny you that right. But just to like have a little demonstration. Now, in this bowl, if you can see, this is a 300 calorie serving of Lay's barbecue potato chips. Okay. Like, this I can finish in maybe 5 minutes and my dog can maybe finish this in 2 minutes. Like, this is not going to cut it. Okay.
Yeah.
And now people think like, well, there's these like, baked low fat potato chips, like baked. I won't name any brands here, but, not naming names, but just to give you an idea, this is about the same amount of calories as the baked chips.
Very sad.
And when it's so sad. And so like when you look at the label, it's kind of like the same amount of calories, the fat's a little less, but it's like the difference in the serving size is like 2 chips. So you might as well eat like the chips you really want to eat. But if you're like me, I want to just have a big bag of chips because in this situation, it's like this is the amount of like chips. Like you can see where my hand is. Like this is a lot. And so that was 300 calories of the bag, and then the rest of the bag is the whole bag. I'm not the best at math, but the whole bag is like 2,400 calories. That's a lot. But if you wanted to be able to eat an entire bag of chips as you enjoy this game, so these are called Snacklins, and it literally says on it, eat the whole bag. You can get them at Whole Foods, but I'm starting to see them pop up like more mainstream and like Costco and Walgreens and like all these different types of places. Mm-hmm. And like they come in fun flavors like Chesapeake Bay, Plant Crisp. They only have a few ingredients: yucca, mushroom, sunflower oil, spiced onion, sea salt. And you would think like you might be a little bit nervous about like what is yucca. It honestly is crunchy and great, and they're like curved, so you can dip. And we're gonna get to dip in a second. But I mean, since I've discovered these, like my whole world vis-a-vis chips has changed because they also come in smaller bags that are like 100 calorie servings. But this entire bag is 310 calories. This entire bag.
That's like awesome. And yoga actually has something called the resistant starch. And resistant starch actually helps promote fullness, and it helps keep your blood sugar more stable. So you're fuller.
I learn something new from her every day. I love having her as a partner. Whereas that starch is absent in the more mainstream potato chips.
Completely absent.
Which is why you could literally eat the whole bag of the mainstream potato chips or half of it at least, and just feel like you've eaten nothing at all. And then that's sad. And then when you actually eat the amount that like you want to eat of them, you realize you've basically blown through your whole like calorie limit throughout the day. And like, that's sad. That's not going to make you feel great the next morning.
Yeah.
So that's chips. Now let's talk about dip, because we haven't, we all love to dip our chips, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's some obvious like kind of low calorie options that are really great. Like salsa is just always a great choice.
Yes.
And like, if you are more of a dip person, like if you eat the chips and dip mainly for the dip, like consider kind of mixing up the chips. Like even if you get a lower calorie kind, mixing it up with raw vegetables like carrots and celery, because that will give you the crunch, but it also give you the fiber, and it also give you like some water intake.
Yes.
And like dipping that in like healthier dips like salsa, or a recent discovery that I made at Whole Foods is these are called Kite Hill dips, and they are dairy free. Okay. They are made with almond milk yogurt. They have it in French onion, and they actually also have queso. And you can heat this up so you can have like chips and nachos. And actually, your sister came up with this great nachos recipe. Do you want to tell them about that one?
Yes. So she came up with this nachos recipe with either using wonton wrappers or mission tortilla wraps,
right?
And the queso dip, and
we have it on the blog.
Yeast.
The full steps are on the Super Bowl Sunday post. Basically, you wouldn't think like wonton wrappers would be a good option, but those are actually very low in calorie, and so like
they have a little bit of fiber.
They have a little bit of fiber. So like we keep seeing like the consistent thing: fiber, fiber, fiber. Fiber is what makes you full, and fiber is what keeps your belly happy, like soluble fiber. So like, these dips, they also, they don't have, you can have 2 tablespoons for about 60 calories, which is a really decent serving. And it's a lot less calories than ranch dips. So like, these are good to have around with your chips.
And they're also, it's not like, you know how growing up you sort of saw the fat-free cream cheese, and you're like, yes. Something tastes a little chemical and something tastes missing.
Yes.
These actually taste like real food, like real. I mean, it is because it's almond milk, but it's actually flavorful. It's actually like, oh, okay, my palate feels like I've had something.
Yeah, not a fan of gross chemical tastes, especially when I found out, especially with regard to like fat-free yogurts or dips or cream cheese, like you said. So when they take the fat out of it, the food loses the binding agency it needs. Mm-hmm. So they have to replace that. And usually they'll replace it with something like xanthan gum or guar, like some kind of gummy chemical substance that kind of gives this food like a weird, icky aftertaste. And usually when they take out the fat, there goes the flavor. So guess what they add to get the flavor? Sugar. Okay, so we're kind of running low on time because I made a promise and I want to keep it. But drinks, all right? So we know a lot of you are still in dry January, and maybe you want to taper off slowly. Maybe you don't want to blow it this weekend. So, you can play a lot of tricks on your mind. So like one thing that like, fun trick that we discovered is, what do wine and beer come in? Glass bottles. Now, I don't know if you can hear this clinking. This is a glass bottle. This is Topo Chico. And by the way, like I have to just quickly give a disclaimer. Neither Netta nor I, for our views are all our own, and neither of us are being paid anything to tout these products. Please don't confuse us with Shaq. These are our own personal opinions. But this is part of the knowledge share, right? Because like, if you don't know like what kind of fines there are, then like you won't be able to like kind of reach that balance, like being happy.
Yes.
And so Netta actually introduced me to Topo Chico. And besides the glass bottle, like, what do you love about Topo Chico?
Well, I like the glass bottle ones because I feel that the fizz is extra fizzy. So this is an extra fizzy sparkling water, and I feel like I'm really having something. And
it's got like a little bit of a bitter taste, so it's almost like, and you can like mix it with like,
it has a real saline punch.
Yeah, you can mix it with citrus, like you can mix it with like a little bit of like ginger, like
cucumber.
Like another good non-alcoholic beverage choice is kombucha, which often comes in a pretty glass bottle like this. It's also a probiotic, and it does have 0.5% alcohol, but you wouldn't be drinking that for the buzz, but you'd be drinking it for the probiotics. So on our blog, our Super Bowl Sunday, so if you go to the homepage of the blog, it's like right there, and you can always message me and I'm happy to send you the link. But it's all right there. And we have like all these fun drink recipes. And so like drinking out of glass bottles, but also, there's nothing wrong with like pouring your drink into a wine glass. There's also like, Whole Foods even has like mocktail, like Cosmo drinks. Like there's just like, I actually looked at the nutritional information, and it was only about, for 4 ounces, 20 calories. So that's pretty decent. 40 calories for an 8-ounce glass. So there's a lot of ways that you can have fun drinks on Super Bowl Sunday, not wake up with a hangover and Monday morning quarterbacking. And now, because we're almost at time, let's talk about Monday morning. So it's possible that you may just indulge just a little bit more than you think you are going to, either that day or for, your Valentine's Day outing or any reason at all. But the next morning is not like, it's not like a punish yourself session, either with working out or depriving yourself of food. Like the great thing about fitness is that it really is like a one day at a time thing.
Yes.
And so like, you just start over, right? Like you eat like that good breakfast, you do like a consistent workout. Like you look at it like for the long term rather than something that like you quote unquote, ruined.
Yes.
Right.
And that the key thing with that, it goes back to your why.
Yeah.
And it goes back honestly to finding what makes you feel good from the inside out, and looking at that as your driver. So say you went really wild.
And you go wild too, right?
Yeah.
She's not like
I'm not.
I'm not perfect either.
I lived my life.
Yeah.
But for the most part, what I do and is how I take my approach to things is I say, okay, what makes me feel good?
Yeah.
So is that going to make me feel good later? And
that's a good question to ask yourself. Like, but before all, ideally, you'd ask yourself the question beforehand. But like, how is this going to make me feel later?
Yes.
Like that's like kind of the key question to ask yourself. Like, and as our final tip is, as you're going through the game today, it's a long game. It starts at like 3:30 Pacific time, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. But there's pre-games, there's pre-shows, or the halftime show. So like pace yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to eat all this food in 15 minutes. If you're at someone's house, and they have sort of a buffet, like take your time and be picky. It's a long night. Eat slowly.
Yes.
If you're at home or, even if you're at a party, it's like take smaller plates. This will give you the illusion that you're eating more.
Yes.
So like those are like some really good tips we have. Do wish we had more time, but we know that you're pressed for time if you're joining us live. If you're watching the recording later, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have one of these once a month with more topics. So look for more info about DAOFitLive number 3, and you can definitely get that and our bi-weekly newsletter by subscribing to DAOFitLive.com. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank
And have a
you.
wonderful, healthy, happy weekend.
Thank you.